everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I am finally filming a highly requested video. I don't know how long it's been, and I just kept kind of forgetting with the horses I was teaching. But I finally have a horse, learning Liberty, that I remembered to film this with. So there are a lot of different ways to teach Liberty, and my methods have really changed over the years. So this video has been a hard one to get to making because there are just so many different ways of teaching Liberty. Like I said, my methods have changed so much, and really there's not a super standard way to do things. I just try different things with every horse and keep learning and growing. Each horse has a different preference, and I learn new things with each one. But this video will be trying to show the basics of how I start training Liberty with two different horses, my quarter horse Jazzy and my Mustang Echo. An important thing to remember about Liberty is it's about finding a connection with your horse and doing a lot of trial and error to figure out how to communicate with them. And this video will show some of the first steps you can use. So going back to what I did with Titan was draw, and that's where you basically just start out teaching the horse to come towards you, and then you build off that. For this method, I still do that eventually. I want my horse to know how to come towards me, but I start out with hind quarter yields and on the circle. So step one is to make sure your horse is really solid on all of the basics, like back up. So for your hind quarter yield, you can start out with the rope. When you teach it, you can use a little bit of pressure, but before I go to Liberty, I want to be able to hind quarter yield really softly with literally no pressure on the lead rope, because the hind quarter yield is going to be what your cue is when you don't have the lead rope on, and so they need to be able to do it very effortlessly without pressure. So I want to be able to walk around to his hindquarters and have him really softly yield without any pressure on the rope. And I walk around here and he just immediately yields his hindquarters. And it's important that you make sure your horse is stepping under in front with his inside leg, getting a full yield. And my cue is just kind of walking towards his hindquarters and bending my energy towards him a little bit. And I can add energy and get him to go a little bit faster. So that is your first step. You need to work on that until your horse can do it every time without any confusion. Because if they don't understand this step, they're not going to be able to move forward knowing what you're asking. So another note here, you definitely can teach Liberty without starting on the lead rope, but it takes a little bit longer for some horses to figure out. And to make it quicker and easier for them, I just like to start with the rope, giving them a foundation so they understand what cues I'm giving them. However, with Titan, I started out doing some things at Liberty before he was even halter trained, so it really just depends on what your preference is. So after you've completed the first step, what you'll do is you use the hind quarter yield and you start out just kind of pushing them around. But then you'll kind of barely start with your whip. You'll start asking them to move forward through it a little bit, and you'll continue to walk towards their hindquarters, but in a little more of a circle. But make sure it's not the same exact cue or they'll get confused about the hind quarter yield. So I'll walk towards the hindquarters, get a hind quarter yield, and then I'll start pushing him forward around me, just like this. So he's still kind of yielding his hindquarters, but he has a little bit of forward motion in it. And you'll just want to keep doing this. Kind of point your body towards his belly. until he can kind of softly move around you in a circle while keeping all of his energy towards you and paying attention. And we'll do this on both sides to make sure it's solid in both directions. So as you can see, I make sure that he can do that without any pressure on the lead rope, because he needs to not need any help from the lead rope to be able to do that. And so Jazzy has had, I think, maybe 3 Liberty sessions. We just started. And he's kind of a natural. He figured it out really quick. Some horses will take a lot more time to figure out the first steps. But that's okay. You just keep working until you've got those really soft movements. So if he's really soft and staying connected, then I'll go ahead and take the lead rope off and start working at Liberty. And from there, you do exactly the same thing. You start with the hind quarter yield and make sure that you can do it without the rope. Good. So he stays with me really well. And then I'll go ahead and start bringing the forward motion into it. So I'm still kind of doing the same thing, but just asking him to go in a circle. And then when I want him to hind quarter yield, I'll just kind of bend towards his hind quarters a little. Good job. So this part is pretty simple. You just have to make sure it's super solid before you move forward. So step 2 is going to be starting to ask him to change directions and just really getting him connected on both sides. So I start asking for this circle. And then I'll hind quarter yield and switch around and pick him up on this side. And so if your horse were to decide to leave, which hopefully they won't if they understand what you're asking, but if they do, you can just first let them leave and then go and push them around the outside a little bit and have them trot or lope until they seem like they're paying attention to you again. And then just go up to them, invite them back in, and try all over again. So I'll just mess around with this a few times and make sure he's still really connected and not drifting away. So once you've got all this down is when you can start asking for a trot and moving forward with that. And from there you start out with just a couple steps and then hind quarter yielding again. But eventually you can move forward and start doing more and more circles and building the horse's connection with you and making sure he'll stick with you even at the trot. Here I want to be able to walk forward and just kind of go in a circle and him follow me. This isn't quite draw, but it's a really important part that I want him to have. Good. So eventually you'll start working towards facing farther forward and just kind of pushing your horse around you. But to start with, you want to make sure that you're kind of walking towards the horse's hindquarters to keep them with you and kind of bringing them back towards you. So he kind of lost focus there and then decided to drift away. But that was a great example of how I let them kind of move away a bit and then start pushing him out. And he loves to run. He loves to have his sillies, so he likes to just run around a few times. And then as soon as he's ready, I'll let him come back to me and we'll go back to working on it and just really practice those hindquarters again. So since this guy is still so new to Liberty, I'm playing around with different things and just figuring out what he responds to the best. And so when he starts to drift away, I still walk towards him. But when he's just going in a circle around me, I'm starting to plant my feet more and just let him keep moving around. The other thing you can do is if they start getting a little farther away from you than you'd like, you can just turn them around and do a direction change to try to bring their attention back to you. Yeah, good job. Alright, so that was a lot better. This is only his fourth session, so he's still really figuring out. And that's what will happen a lot of times. They'll start trying to figure it out and start going a little farther and figuring out where they need to be. And so when they do that, you just have to figure out a little bit clearer of a way to ask them to stay close to you. So for him, what I started doing is I'll go to his hindquarters to ask him to start going on the circle. And then once he's going around me, I just kind of plant my feet and turn around. And he finds that a lot easier to stick with me. But yeah, that was a lot of progress. I was really working on trying to get him to stay closer to me and have a little bit of a bend. And after having a little bit of zoomies, he really figured that out. And that was a good place to end. Alright, so this is Echo, and she's really never done Liberty before. We've messed around with it a couple times, but never really had any actual sessions working on it. So this is a better look at a horse that really doesn't know anything yet. And for her, I'm probably going to do a little more draw. She's a lot more sensitive and just needs a lot of help to get connected. She gets distracted easily and has a little bit of a shorter attention span. So I have to do things a little differently with her versus Jazzy. I still make sure that I can do all the normal things like hindquarter yields, side passing, and backing up. Yeah. But other than that, she doesn't really have any start for Liberty. So again, I'll show what you want to be able to do for your hindquarter yield. What I start out with draw is on the lead rope. I just start asking her to come towards me, and I do a lot of direction changes and try to get her really paying attention to where I move my feet and sticking with me in any direction without having to put pressure on the halter. It's okay if you have to put pressure to start with to get the horse to come along with you, but your goal is to not have any pressure. So I'll do a lot of tight turns here, and you see she lost me a little bit, and I want her to come back to me and put her head facing towards me. So if they lose focus and start moving away from me, I just try to really move my feet in a way that brings them back to me. Good. And the other thing I want is for her to stop with her head right about here and not go past me. So a really great thing to help with draw is you can work a lot on the fence line, just going around and keeping the horse coming with you and stopping whenever you stop, and just really focusing on your body language. hardest thing is just sticking with me and not trying to run forward. So for horses like her, it's really not going to be super pretty or fancy really fast. You just have to do a lot of repetition and work on getting your maneuvers calm and controlled. She's really smart, but she likes to get a bit overwhelmed. So we just do a lot of work on getting her connected to my body language and just sticking with me a lot. Yeah. So once I feel like she's really sticking with me, I can start asking her to come around me in a circle a little more, similar to what I did with Jazzy, but instead I start more from her shoulders and not her hind end. So once I feel like we've got those down really good and that she's really connected to me, then I'll start to take the lead rope off. With her, I already know she's more likely to run away because she gets distracted so easy. But what I'll do is just try to get in front of her drive line and bring her back to me if she decides to leave. So starting off here, she was following me really well. But when we came around by the lead rope, she got distracted and wanted to stop and sniff it and then ran away. So I just asked her to keep going, and here she tries to turn around and I get her going the other way again. I really don't want her to turn away from me. I prefer for her to turn towards me. And so something I will do with her is I'll add a lot more energy if she turns away, but just slowly walk in front of her if she keeps facing towards me. So it's just a lot of shifts with energy, and with her I do a lot of different things. This was really nice. She went away but then didn't turn away from me, and I invited her straight back in, and after just a moment she came back to me, so I really reward her for that and then try again. Here I asked for a hindquarter yield and she chose to stay with me, which I was really happy about. So you'll just see me here, she'll go about to leave and I was able to step in front of her and bring her attention back. So that was really lovely. It's just kind of the main thing with her is trying to shift her energy back towards me instead of just running away and turning away from me without really paying attention to what I'm asking. I like how she stopped to sniff it here but then came back to me and didn't totally lose me. So I'm starting out with just simple, easy maneuvers that will help her stay connected to me. So here, after a bunch of walking, I ask her to trot and see if she'll stick with me. And she did really well with that. I was very impressed. So in the past, with just simple groundwork, she had a lot of trouble staying with me and not trying to turn away. So I'm really happy with how much better she's doing and how much our previous prep work helped her. She's really starting to stay in tune to all my cues. Here I ask for a little direction change and she stuck with me nicely through that. This was just really beautiful and I decided to end there on this good note. So honestly, I'm really happy with our session. We're gonna go ahead and end here. she did really well. She started out super distracted and kind of easily leaving, but we worked through that really quick, and she honestly really surprised me. After the first few times, she just pretty much started thinking through it and really stuck with me, and that was great progress. Yeah. So that's why it's really important to get a really good connection on the lead rope first, and that really helped her know what the cues are and how to respond. So as soon as I was able to get her thinking with me and coming back to me, it just really set her up for success. Good girl. Yeah. So I hope you all enjoy this video, and if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll try to answer. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.